Okay, alright.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Ultra. Today we're continuing in Daniel, and remember, Daniel is the first prophet that we're doing. You have prophets of major and minor categories, not because of their importance, but because of the length of which they talk. You also have pre- and post-exilic prophets, and then you have also prophets who write in the middle or during the exile. And Daniel is one of those who's going to be writing in the middle of the exile. He's going to be under several different kings. We've seen a couple of them go in this passage. We've seen King Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar, and then we also have seen right now Darius the Mede. So those are all three of the different kings that we kind of see happen and come up in Daniel. Now, when you think of Daniel, what do you think about? You probably think about what? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Maybe. Maybe you think about the writing on the wall. Probably so. But if I had to guess, most of you watching, if you think of Daniel, the first place your mind goes to is Daniel and the lion's den. And that's where we're going to be today, Daniel chapter 6. And what we see when we look in the Daniel and the lion's den, we see a lot of things happen. We see this rule that went out, and people are mad because Daniel was so high up in position. So they're going to try to get him killed. They're going to try to get him bumped down. So the way that they do that is they're going to just watch him and they're going to spy on him. And they do that, but they decide this dude is flawless. His business is great. His life is great. There's no other way that we can come against this guy except when it comes to his religion. So they go to the king, Darius the Mede, and they decide, hey, let's just make it a sin to pray. And if you pray, you're going to be killed and thrown into a lion's den. And Darius thinks this is not to pray, but to pray to another God besides Darius. They want basically it to be illegal for Daniel to pray to God. And Daniel says, you know what I'm going to do? So the edict goes out, and King Darius makes this law and writes this law, and he says you can't pray to any other gods except me for however many days. And so what Daniel did is he went up to verse 10, you see it, when he learned what had happened and what had been signed by the king, he went to his home, he knelt down as usual upstairs in his window, and he opened the window towards Jerusalem, and he prayed 3 times that day. So, I don't know if this is a real question, but it's just a thought. And here it is. Will you still pray when it costs something to pray? Will you still come to church when it costs you something? Will you still give when it costs you something? Will you still read your Bible when it's difficult? When you're going to have consequences and when you're going to have to pay the price, because Daniel was going to have to pay the price. He was put in the lion's den. He knew very well what his consequences would be. And in fact, it says that he prayed with the window open. He knew. He said, y'all see me if y'all want to see me. I'm standing with God. I'm taking my stand. I'm taking my stand right here. I'm going to pray. You can't stop me from praying. So, and I think this is really poignant when it comes to being bought, because I think many times you can be bought. Maybe your job, maybe your friend, maybe your school, maybe your well, my question is, are you up for sale? Well, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Ultra, where we take 5 chapters a day for 100 days trying to read about half of our entire Bible. We have almost made it to the New Testament. We're in our prophets. We have minor and major prophets. We have pre- and post-exilic prophets, but Daniel is going to be a major prophet writing in the middle of the exile. They're exiled from Judah, where they live, to Babylon. He's going to be under 3 kings. Daniel is King Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar, and then Darius the Mede. It's Darius the Mede that is going to be in our story today. So when you think about Daniel, what do you think of? Maybe you think of the writing on the wall. Fair enough. Maybe you think of the fiery furnace. All right, good point. Maybe you even think of something along the lines of Daniel's persistence. Okay, really good. The Daniel diet. Very good. But if I had to guess, most people, including myself, when they think of Daniel, you think of Daniel and the lion's den. And it's that story that we see here today. So at the beginning of the video, I asked you a question. That's, can you be bought? That was the question that Daniel was going to have to ask and have to maybe answer. So I know you've already read this, but just to kind of give you a little bit of background, just in case you haven't, these people are jealous of Daniel. So they go to the king and say, King, we want you to make it an edict or a rule or a law that you cannot pray to any god except you for these next week or however many days. So the king says, really good idea, let's do that. He makes a law or an edict that you cannot pray to any god. Well, Daniel hears about the law, he hears about the edict, and he says, I'm not going to obey that. What? Heck no. So he goes and he opens his window. He opens the window so that everybody can see, I'm not obeying that stupid law. I'm going to pray to my God. He gets on his knees and he prays to God. And the couple of people who were watching him, trying to sabotage him, they went straight to the king. Daniel, and they told Daniel. Daniel obviously was going to have to face consequences and be thrown into the lion's den. So, my question now is, will you pray when it costs you something? At the restaurant, will you pray? Will you pray at school when it costs you something? Will you read your Bible when it costs you something? Will you come to church when it costs you something? So this was going to be very pricey the reason that I say this is because, man, people can be bought like so easy, and it's just, and I'm guilty of it too. I ain't saying I'm saying I'm guilty of it too, but it's like we are so quick to just say, well, God will understand, or it's okay, and I'll listen to that, or I won't stand up for it. And God, in the meantime, is like, man, when's somebody going to open the window and take a stand for me, pray in public for me? When's somebody going to sit there and say, I'm sick of all this other stuff about the ungodly? Everybody's saying it's cool to be ungodly. When's somebody going to stand up and say, I don't care if it's cool to be godly or not, I'm going to be godly? I don't know. It's just, people just, and once again, I'm saying I'm guilty of it. And I love what Daniel does. Is he prays morning, noon, and night. He prays 3 times a day. So in my life, I've tried to make that a practice that I have. And I'm not saying I do this good at all, but I think it's the closest I've ever been with God is when I read the Bible and pray in the morning. I read the Bible and pray in the middle of noon or so, and I read and pray at night. And when I have that routine, that is definitely when my relationship with Christ grows. So those are the 2 things that really stood out to me: is, can I be bought in my job, in your job, at your school, in your relationships with friends or people who maybe you think they're your friends? Can you be bought? And then secondly, am I praying morning, noon, or night? I think that's a really good thing to do, especially if you really feel like you need not extra, because I think we all do, but if you feel distance from God, I would say, man, pray morning, pray noon, pray night, and read your Bible morning, noon, and night, and that would really change. Well, that's what I got out of today's episode. I'm going to be skipping Daniel chapter 11 and 12. 11 and 12, it deals with the end times. We've already covered the end time extensively last year at church, so I'm not going to really dive into it. I do just want to say for a quick second, verse 11 of chapter 12 says, from the time of the daily sacrifices is stopped, the sacrilegious object of destruction is set up, the worshipped, there will be 1,290 days, and blessed are those who wait and remain until the end of the 1,335 days. So if you're asking the question to yourself, Has the sacrilegious object came? The answer is no. And the reason that we know it's no is, and I believe that it's no. Some people would say 1,290 days till what? It's 1,290 days till Jesus. So that's what many people would say. I think it's saying 1,290 days till the end has come, like terminito, finito, God's coming back. That's what I think it's talking about. So I don't think the sacrilegious object has come yet. And once again, we have a whole story study in Revelation. So if you want to go back and watch that, we talk about that specific text. And Jesus is mention of it, I think, in Matthew 24, 25. But anyway, so that's all. And tomorrow, we're going to be in the next 5 chapters. We're skipping 11 and 12, though. I hope you do have time to read that. And we're actually going to go to Jeremiah. I think we're going to Ezekiel next. So we'll be in Ezekiel, I think chapters 1 through 5. So I'll see y'all. I'll leave the link in the description just in case. But I do believe that's where we're going to be. So I'll see y'all tomorrow. And until then, peace.